I feel a little bad about this devotion to one of my far seniors and superiors and actually be sitting here. I was asked to. Huh? Yeah. I was asked to, so I hope with your blessings I can say something. Then, not so many, but I ask you to come just a little closer, because otherwise I feel a little isolated up here. Also in the back, would you like to come? Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Kunja Bihari Jai Radha
Give me
Srimad Bhagavatam ki. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, today from Srimad Bhagavatam's second canto, chapter 14, Ideal Family Life, and it's text number 2. Sri Narada Uvacha. Sri Narada Uvacha. Griheshu. Avastita. Rajan. Kriya. Kurvan. Yathochita. Vasudeva. Arpanam. Sakshat. Upasita. Mahamunin. Sri Narada Uvacha. Grihesvavastito Rajan. Kriya Kurvan Yathochita. Vasudevarpanam Sakshat. Upasita Mahamunin. Sri Narada Uvacha. Grihesvavastito Rajan. Kriya Kurvan Yathochita. Vasudevarpanam Sakshat. Upasita Mahamunin.
Sri Narada Uvacha. Grihesvavastito Rajan. Kriya Kurvan Yathochita. Vasudevarpanam Sakshat. Upasita Mahamunin.
Sri Narada Uvacha. Grihesvavastito Rajan. Kriya Kurvan Yathochita. Vasudevarpanam Sakshat.
Upasita Mahamunin.
Sri Narada Uvacha. Grihesvavastito Rajan. Kriya Kurvan Yathochita. Vasudevarpanam Sakshat. Upasita Mahamunin.
Upasita Mahamunin. Mahamuni. Shri Naraduvacha. Shri Naraduvacha. Grihesho vastito rajan. Grihesho vastito rajan. Kriya kurvan yathochita. Kriya kurvan yathochita. Vasudevarpanam sakshat. Vasudevarpanam sakshat. Upasita Mahamuni. Upasita Mahamuni.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Griheshvavastito rajan.
Griheshvavastito rajan.
Kriyakurvan yathochita.
Kriyakurvan yathochita.
Vasudevarpanam sakshat.
Vasudevarpanam sakshat.
Upasita Mahamuni.
Upasita Mahamuni.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Griheshvavastito rajan.
Griheshvavastito rajan.
Kriyakurvan yathochita.
Kriyakurvan yathochita.
Vasudevarpanam sakshat.
Vasudevarpanam sakshat.
Upasita Mahamuni.
Upasita Mahamuni.
Sri Narada Uvacha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Sri Narada Muni replied,
Shri Narada Muni replied,
Yeshu,
Yeshu,
at home,
at home,
avastitaha,
avastitaha,
staying. A household generally stays home with his wife and children. Rajan,
Rajan,
O king,
O king,
Kriyaha,
Kriyaha,
activities, Kurvan,
Kurvan,
performing,
performing,
Yato Chita,
Yathochita,
suitable,
suitable,
as instructed by the Guru and Shastra.
as instructed by the Guru and Shastra.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
unto Lord Vasudeva,
unto Lord Vasudeva,
Arpanam,
Arpanam,
dedicating, Sakshat,
Sakshat,
directly, Upasita,
Upasita,
should worship, Mahamunim,
Mahamuni,
great devotees.
great devotees.
Translation. Narada Muni replied, My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood, and instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna, Vasudeva. How to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The format for Grihastha life should be dedication to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 6.1, it is said, Anashrita karma palam karyam karma karoti aha sa sanyasi to yogi cha niratniyana chakriyaha. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works at his obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is a true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Whether one acts as a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha or sannyasi, he must act only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. This should be the principle for everyone's life. Narada Muni has already described the principles of life for a brahmachari, vanaprastha and sannyasi, and now he's describing how a grihastha should live. The basic principle is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The science of satisfying the Supreme Lord can be learned as described here, Sakshat Upasita Mahamunim. The word Mahamunim refers to great saintly persons or devotees. Saintly persons are generally known as munis, or thoughtful philosophers concerned with transcendental subject matters. And Mahamunim refers to those who have not only thoroughly studied the goal of life, but who are actually engaged in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. These persons are known as devotees. Unless one associates with devotees, one cannot learn the science of Vasudevarpana, or dedicating one's life to Vasudeva, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In India, the principles of this science were followed strictly. Even 50 years ago, I saw that in the villages of Bengal and the suburbs of Calcutta, people engaged in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam daily when all their activities ended, or at least in the evening before going to bed. Everyone would hear the Bhagavatam. Bhagavad classes were held in every village, and thus people had the advantage of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes everything about the aim of life, liberation or salvation. This will be clearly explained in the next verses. Sri Narada Uvacha Dihe Svavasito Rajan Kriya Kuranyato Chijaha Vasudeva Panam Sakshat Upasita Mahamunin. Narada Muni replied, "My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood, and instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna Vasudeva. How to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord." Om Agyanatimananda Shavaganandana Salakya Chaksunvitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Hangum Langaiti Kilim Yat Kripa Tarahang Vande Shri Gurum Dinatari Nam. So, we hear in the last section of the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, which is the section where the science of civilized life is being discussed and described actually in detail by Narada Muni. Vanashram means civilized life. That's actually when we use the word civilized means Vanashram, and Vanashram means civilized. Actually, below Vanashram, we are going down in uncivilized human life. So, as you notice, actually, it's a very prominent topic in the Srimad Bhagavatam as well as in Prabhupada's purports. So, which means it must have some importance. Otherwise, Prabhupada would not write so much about it. Sometimes, and because it is a complex topic on one sense. And sometimes you might think it's not even so relevant like that. We think it's like Prabhupada is giving a little insight into kind of a little cultural, it's a kind of relic into a different culture like that. But isn't that relevant to us? But I guess we can, from just the sheer amount, I think probably, I don't know if anyone has really analyzed, but I say probably a third about what Prabhupada writes about in the Bhagavatam is actually about Vanashram. So just the sheer volume of Prabhupada's writings on Vanashram indicates that it's more than just, for kind of a curiosity's sake, we just hear a little about Vanashram. Prabhupada mentions other things which he just mentions them sometimes in purport, things on and off, which are some nice information, but may not be really relevant for us. But I'd say actually Vanashram is not on that like that. It's extremely important. It's extremely important. And I'd say it's actually crucial for our Krishna consciousness. The whole, all the Vanashram topic is, I'd say, probably without, Krishna consciousness, without Vanashram, and really understanding Vanashram and practicing Vanashram, we cannot become Krishna conscious. Of course, we have, then we can think about the discussion between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. So when Ramananda Roy, that was his first reply to Lord Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya said what this means, what is the goal of life, and what are the means to achieve the goal of life. So then Ramananda Roy, he said, one should follow Varnashram and dedicate the results of Varnashram to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Varnasrama, Charava, Tar, Purusingha, Parapama, how it goes. And then Aradi. Vishnu Aradan Puman.
Nanya Tattva
Nanya Tattva Paramat. One should follow the principles of Varnashram, and there's actually no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Ramananda Roy gave that as his first answer. And Lord Chaitanya said, Eho Vaya, this is external. And then, the conversation goes on. And actually, Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya is not satisfied before Ramananda Roy replies, Gane Prayasam Udapanda Namanta. Eva, that once you not change one's position, this or that, but once you simply remain in whatever position and circumstance and place where one is, and once you simply hear about Krishna Katha, that is the path to achieve perfection in life. And then Dr. San, this is very good, and then of course the conversation continues. So this conversation is often used as justification for discarding Varnashram. Dr. Chaitanya said this is external, so we have nothing to do with it because it's just external. But then again, if we look at it a little differently also, we said Lord Chaitanya did say this is external. It's true. But also, again, did Lord Chaitanya follow Varnashram? Well, he did follow Varnashram. So it's not, actually Lord Chaitanya did not discard or reject devotionals, Varnashram in his, you might say, external activities. He followed very strictly. But, as the ultimate process for achieving the goal of life, we need Shravanam, Kirtanam, and also the goal of life is not just to be perfect followers of Varnashram. It's actually, the goal is to achieve pure love for Krishna. Not even liberation. There's also discussion on that in Lord Chaitanya. When he was traveling in South India, he met the Tattavadis. And Tattavadis are the followers of the Mahatmacharya. And as I've understood actually, if anyone really wants to understand Varnashram and the science of Varnashram, one should go to the Tattavadis. So anyone who knows Varnashram, and it's Tattavadis, I've heard, I haven't been to them myself, but I heard someone say, someone who really knows Varnashram, that's the Tattavadis. So they also, when Lord Chaitanya asked about what is the goal of life and what are the means to achieve it. So then the Acharya, the Tattavadis that Chaitanya was speaking with, he said, once you follow the four Varnas and the four Ashramas for the dedication of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result is that one will achieve one of the four Vaishnava liberations, and that is the goal of life. And then Lord Chaitanya, he said, but he again rejected this and said, why are you misleading me? Actually, the goal of life is to achieve pure love of Godhead, not even liberation, not even by conflagrations. Lord Chaitanya says, whether we, even take birth again, but to be engaged in Krishna's service wherever one is, that is the goal of life. And the means to achieve it is, again, Shravanam, Kirtanam. So again, they would see that it's a conflict, seemingly conflict there. So Varnashram, Lord Chaitanya, he said it's not the goal of life as such, or liberation is not the goal of life. There's a higher goal, and ultimately the real goal of life is to, or the real process is Shravanam, Kirtanam. Still, Varnashram is extremely important. It's not possible practically for anyone to achieve Krishna consciousness without the principles of Varnashram. It's possible for a few. For a few, it's possible. If one is Haridas Thakur, for example, it's possible. If one is actually able to be fully absorbed and simply chanting Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours a day and completely absorbs, one's complete being, one's mind, one's intelligence, one's desires, and there's no, that actually then Varnashram is not necessary. Or it's also if one is engaged completely, for example, in deity worship, Pancharatric, and so on, then also Varnashram is of less importance. But if one is not able to be fully absorbed in, actually there are free processes and even platforms that, and actually Prabhupada introduced all of them in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness. There is the platform, the Bhagavatam platform, which Haridas Thakur is the example of. If one is fully absorbed in hearing, chanting, preaching Krishna consciousness, this is the Bhagavatam platform. And we see actually Prabhupada, wasn't that what he started out with? He simply engaged devotees in chanting and hearing and kirtan and going out and having harinams in the street and preaching, and devotees were completely absorbed in that. But then, when it seemed that devotees was not able to completely absorb them, then Prabhupada started introducing the principles of Pancharatric, which becomes, regulations, deity worship, regulations, get up and regulate time, follow the sadhana process. Basically, that is the sadhana process is from the Pancharatric, derived from the Pancharatric principles. So, and that's actually still what one can say is completely pure devotional service. It's still, whereas the Bhagavad platform is on a spontaneous platform, somewhat spontaneous. If it's also somewhat free, a little wild. We know that when we get completely absorbed in preaching like that, things become very spontaneous, very sometimes even wild, very not in a disturbing way. Like for example, I guess all of us have had that when we completely absorbed in book distribution. We do all kind. It's the regulations of the material world don't really matter anymore, and one does things which are, it's completely transcendental to regulations and even seemingly, good behavior, moral ethics of the material world. But it's not a disturbance because it's on the pure platform. So that is Bhagavad platform is a very much a spontaneous platform. So if one is not able to run a spontaneous platform, then it's the regulated platform, the Pancharatric platform. Still, that is only devotional service. It's within the 9 processes. One is practicing one of the 9 processes of devotional service all the time. But here it's it's disciplines. Once a conditioned nature is a little more affecting one, but with a strict discipline, one can still be absorbed in all the 9 processes of devotional service. And then after Bhagavad platform, Pancharatric platform, then there is, if that is not able to absorb one completely, then there is the next platform, that is Varnashram. That's a Varnashram platform, where now material attachments are affecting one more. One is not able to completely be absorbed into other platforms. So then Varnashram is there. Here one's material attachments are more prominent. One is has attachments to both the ashrams, which mean an ashram means being married or not being married, and one has also attachment to working in certain ways, to certain activities. On the pure platform, it's simply what Krishna wants us to do. On the Varnashram platform, it's actually what I want to do. Now it's I'm attached to acting in a certain. I'm attached to one kind of work, and these are the Varnas: Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And then so Varnashram, then this is more or less Krishna's signs how to deal with our material attachments. How we, because we can of course deal with our material attachments in, many ways. We used to deal with it in many ways, and these were ways that often were these were uncivilized, and they were degrading us. So Varnashram is Krishna's signs, Krishna's instructions for how we address our material attachments. And that's of course also we find extremely essential, because in the long run we cannot, or most of us were not able to completely function on Bhagavatam and Pancharati platform all the time. But then there is Varnashram. And if one is dealing with one's material attachments according to the science of civilized human life, Varnashram, actually there is no problem. One is still, one is not degrading, which is a big thing. We don't degrade, and it gives it, and one is actually being elevated. One develops up through both the ashramas, where one's detachment is decreasing. No, attachment is decreasing. In deep one is becoming. And detachment is increasing. And at the same time, one also, of course, develops simply as a person. Grows as a person, gets experience, becomes a mature person, and so on. And it provides a very solid platform for continuing practicing devotional service. It's not that in Varnashram that the other two platforms, Bhagavat's platform, Pancharati platform, are not being practiced. They are being practiced, as we see here, as Lalitanath is describing, and as Prabhupada is elaborating on in the purport. They are still an essential part of one's whole life. But you might actually say that now the Bhagavat and Pancharati platform are being stabilized by a solid practice of the Varnashram principles. And by doing that, then also one is advancing in life very solidly, very steadily. The problem comes when we step below the Varnashram civilized platform. Then we have these dramatic, where we can go from being fully absorbed in pure devotional service, and suddenly we're back on the militia platform, breaking principles and so on. We kind of, and there's no safety net if we do not have the Varnashram principles under us. Varnashram is actually like a safety net, protecting us from, degradation, if we know how to follow that. But again, we see here, and here we, of course, we are now dealing with ideal family life, which is a very essential part of the whole Varnashram. In Varnashram, most actually are living in family life. And family life means being a man, woman, being married, there are children, and there are all kinds of principles for how to, live a proper married life. And as we see here, Narada Muni's first instruction to Yudhishthira on how to live as a proper grihastha is, well, actually the first thing is one should earn a livelihood. So you see, this is actually grihastha's first thing. You have to earn a livelihood. For earning a livelihood, well, there is a whole science how to earn your livelihood. It should be an honest means, first of all. One should have an honest and respectable means of livelihood. And then again, what one's livelihood is, well, it depends on one's nature. One may be a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. One has different livelihoods according to one's nature. So one should earn a honest living as a grihastha. But then instead of trying to enjoy the results of the work, all the results should be offered to Krishna. This is the platform of, we actually on the platform of karma yoga. Vanashram is on, here we're talking about karma yoga. But Narada Muni, he's talking about niskam karma yoga. Niskam means no desires for enjoying the fruits or the results. But one is acting, performing one's prescribed duty, because it is one's duty, and then the results are offered for Krishna's satisfaction. And that's actually still a pure platform. It's not, sometimes we are saying, it's not pure devotional service, it's just karma yoga. Yeah, but it's niskam karma yoga. This is actually, it's quite a good platform. It's actually a platform that Krishna instructs Arjuna to follow, isn't it? He says, perform your prescribed duty, but you act for me. You know, how is it? 8:6. How does that start? Bhagavatam. What's the first? Perform your prescribed duty of fighting and at the same time think of me. What is the first word? It's after Yam Yam Bhavismaran. Tasmat Saveshu Kaleshu Yusmat Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. Yeah. So my memory is really fading. But anyway, Krishna says, perform your prescribed duty of fighting, and at the same time you should think of me. This is actually niskam karma yoga that Krishna is instructing Arjuna to follow. So we should not think that, actually we are completely out of the scope of pure devotional service. It's actually, we're still within the scope of pure devotional service if we can follow that platform. But it's a platform, of course, where in the calculation has been factored our conditioned nature, which is a factor we cannot, leave out. We simply have a conditioned nature. It's like in one sense, a certain disease. I mean, we cannot leave out that we have a disease. But if we are following, the prescriptions of the doctor, acting properly, and then doing whatever we can, to fulfill our duty, then we are, you might say, we are as good as anyone else. We're not completely healthy, but we are as good as healthy people because we are following the path to become healthy. Niskam karma yoga is like that. It's still on the pure platform, but we have to factor in our own conditioned nature, and gradually we are coming to the pure platform. So this is what Narada Muni is telling here to Yudhishthira. You should act as a very, dutiful householder, earn your livelihood honestly, but then offer everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, for his satisfaction, and then combine this with, it says here, how to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. And Prabhupada elaborates on this in the purport. This means that one should every day in Prabhupada said, what does he write here? He said, in India, the principles of this science were followed strictly. Even 50 years ago or so, that in the village of Bengal and the suburbs of Calcutta, people engaged in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam daily when all the activities ended, or at least in the evening before going to bed. That is the culture. Prabhupada is also explaining that in several places. There's in second canto, Prabhupada is again in one of the purports, I think it's in second canto, third chapter. He's there telling about how he remembered back in even like 50 years ago. In the morning, people they would gather, and they would either in the temple or gather with the family and so on. And then they would be hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and having kirtan and so on. Then a little later, then there would everyone would get together and eat. There would be prasadam, of course. The women would have been cooking. That was part of their, at least those who were cooking. It's also practical. But ashram is not even practical. Someone had to cook. I'm sure also those, the farmers would have to be milking the cows at this time. But otherwise, as far as possible, everyone was together at that time and simply japa, kirtan, bhagavatam, being with devotees. And then after breakfast, well, then it's all whatever goes on. Then there is one's duties, one's job, or whatever that goes on through the day. And then in the evening, again, everyone gets together somehow or another, either in a temple, in the village, in the family, and then we listen to readings of Mahabharata, Ramayana, and we chant it like that. This is in one sense it's simple. It's a science, but it's simple. The day begins with hearing, Bhagavad hearing, and it ends like this in the evening. And then in between, it's everything is going on there. We see Prabhupada introduced what he called the ISKCON sandwich, morning program, evening program. This is actually the science that Prabhupada is referring to here. And as we can see, it's not only meant for some, it's not only meant for brahmacharis, vanaprastha, sannyasis, it's meant for grihasthas as well. And Prabhupada said, if one follows this, then family life becomes very pleasant, very easy. It's so simple. Of course, we know it's not simple. But still, it's Prabhupada says this is the first principle. There should be a balance in one's grihastha life between one's practical duties, taking care of the family, earning one's livelihood, and so on. Attending to all the social obligations that one has, and hearing, chanting, listening to the Bhagavatam, associating with devotees. Both things must go on. Grihastha life, of course, it's a great art of balancing. That's balance is a very, again, principle is simple. It's complicated when it comes down. One has to translate into one's practical life. But that is still Prabhupada's experience. This is the principle. Family life can become very pleasant when one is following this. Prabhupada also explains in Bhagavad Gita, it's in the purport to 13:8-12, how to have a happy family life. He says the family should sit down in the morning and evening, have some reading from the Bhagavatam, have some kirtan, worship the deities, and take prasadam. So if one can somehow or other incorporate that as one's family life, then family life becomes very, very pleasant. And also, as I understand it, family life is actually meant to be pleasant. Sometimes we have the idea family life is meant to be suffering, and we went to fight like cats and dogs. So that when we reach the age of 50, then we're so frustrated now we're not attached to it anymore. And that might work too, but maybe not really. It's actually not the Vedic. It's not the Vedic idea. Actually, family life is meant to be pleasant, but it's also in one sense, can be a trouble that it can be difficult to detach because it is actually pleasant. Of course, there is a much higher taste of, Shravan, Kirtanam, and like so on. But it's not that family life as such is actually when it's practiced properly. Everyone follows, the men act like the men, women act like the women, and everyone follows their duties, their dharma. Then everything becomes very smooth, very pleasant. Hard work, definitely. A lot of also austerities and like that. But still nice life. Still a nice life, and with harmonious relationships, and sufficient economic wealth, and so on. This is as I understand what family life really should be. We have a background. We're not trained. Vanashram takes a lot of training. Actually, that's the real education for human life is, and we're not educated like that. Of course, we are educated like anything, isn't it? We are educated. We have 10, 13, 15, 20, 25 years. When we're still 30, we're still going to university being educated. So we're so educated, except we're not educated how to live. That's the only problem. Therefore, we cannot figure out how to have proper families. In Vedic education is actually, you learn how to be a proper husband, a proper wife, a good father, a good mother, how to perform your whatever occupation you have, how to maintain your body so you're healthy. And, that's kind of one's material education. And that would, to me, it seems that this is, you don't need more than that. But that, in modern society, that's, one learns everything except that. And then we wonder, why can't we get our families to work? And of course, this is our problem. We have that background. We don't have that training of an ashram. But if the training is there, then actually family life becomes nice. And one advances in spiritual life, and the whole thing falls in place. I'm way over time, actually. I'm sorry. Someone wants to. You want to add something? Comments?
Srila Prabhupada, toward the end of his life, his time with us, he was speaking about Varnashram, and he actually had the intention of going to Gita Nagari to establish, in his own words, establish Varnashram.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I wonder what he would have done to more firmly establish Varnashram at Gita Nagari. Do you have any insights to that?
It's a good question. Because as I used to work here at Varnashram, it's a little different from, and also Prabhupada, when he speaks about Varnashram, it talks about the science of civilized human life. But then also, sometimes Varnashram means farm communities, simple living, leaving the cities, and like that. And that is a very, very essential part of an ashram. This is Krishna's system for maintaining our livelihood, basically, which is, of course, very important. However, that has given the understanding, I think it's a misunderstanding, that in order to practice Varnashram, you have to leave the city and live in the country. And you have to be farming and having cow protection. As I can read it, this is not really, as I can read it, Varnashram is everywhere. There's no, one actually following Varnashram does not depend on the external circumstances. It's of course, if one is in an environment where everyone is following it, makes things of course a lot easier and a lot smoother. But the principles of being a civilized human being, like Prabhupada said, gentlemen and ladies, actually, can be practiced anywhere and by anyone. I mean, even if everyone else is uncivilized, I can still behave civilized if I know what it means to be a civilized person. Again, I mean, I'm the last one to be an expert in this. But as I, kind of can gather, is that Varnashram comes from studying and training in the principles of following Varnashram, actually to understand what it means to follow it and be a civilized human being. It starts actually, as I say, Varnashram starts with the Brahmanas. Not with farming, but actually with the Brahmanas. Brahmanas are the ones who know the whole science, and they teach it to everyone, and then everyone starts practicing by being taught. And then everything will follow in place, and also farming and cow protection will also follow in place. But Prabhupada, by emphasizing in his last days that we want to go to Kinagri, certainly emphasized that living a different lifestyle, which is part of an ashram, with cow protection and farming and so on, is crucial. It's so important that we move in that direction. But again, that does not mean, as I've understood it, and I might be wrong, but as I've understood it, it does not mean, even though we do not have perfectly functioning farming communities, that does not stop us from practicing and developing the Varnashram Dharma principles. And we have to, as I understand, we have to, whether the rest of society is following for our own development of Krishna consciousness, we have to learn how to follow Varnashram. Okay?
Thank you.
Maybe in that sense the village life is conducive for Varnashram because it's easier to live simple in the village. And the city life, there's some pleasure there, and then very easily the Shravan and Kirtanam suffers.
Yeah, but then again also you have in Dwarka, that's a big city. And Dwarka, they still follow Varnashram. So
I mean Kali Yuga city life.
Kali Yuga cities are very difficult. And it's very, but again, with training, it can be done. But most won't. One would be surrounded by, actually someone who should be actually living in jungles. The kind of modern city people also have a place in Varnashram society out there in the forest. And that's why I also sometimes talk about actually modern cities are like jungles, isn't it? The concrete jungles. They are actually like jungles. And it's difficult. It's especially difficult to raise children in such an environment. For that, because it's easy, if someone is already trained, one can practice it anywhere and follow it. Children are not trained. They come like blank slates. To train them in big cities, modern cities, to be civilized. I mean, that's so difficult. For that, for the children's sake, we definitely need village communities.
Also, life is simply so expensive, and many couples, they're convinced that husband and wife have to work to maintain their life in the city with a higher standard of life, more comfort, and then the whole rat race starts.
Yeah, it's difficult, and it's not even. Of course, sometimes we are just attached to the comfort, so then we function on a high living standard. Even if the adults are, ready to live simple, even in the city or in modern society environment. But the problem is the children. The children are affected by their friends. Children have to, their friends have the latest fashion clothes, they have the latest iPhones, they have everything, and they also go to the movies and they go on vacation. And the children, they have to have that also. Well, I mean, I think all those parents know
the
this.
children also, the grown-ups too, they also
And then but then the children, because if you're in the city and the children, they are not up to, at least to some degree, to the same standard as the others, they will have problems and they will be mobbed and teased and excluded from. So what to do as a parent? So you have to give it seems like comrades, the children have to have something, but then you have to work. And this, of course, how consumer advertising works. Advertising is to a large degree directed to the children. So then they can get the parents to work. And I don't know, one has to get the best out of a bad bargain wherever one is. But that's, one has to be practical. But
I just listened lecture and I have a question in mind, but I understand. Really, the devotees should learn from someone. Devotees should teach what they do themselves. So realize knowledge. As I yesterday, Lalitanath Prabhu, he said that this is like one should teach do what he do himself. And today it's interesting, like connection. You say that actually this Tattvavadis, they can teach Varnashram. So and it's like it's actually devotees, they chant Hare Krishna mantra that usually they are uncivilized. And behavior is uncivilized. And in such way you can chant mantra 2-3 years and then you fall down because you have no civilized manners, you have no civilized qualities. And then it's like, but at the same time outside there are civilized people who didn't chant mantra because they see how this mantra is chanted by uncivilized men. And at the end, maybe they can be like that devotees, or someone who wants to be devotees, then first he go and learn good manners and how to, otherwise it is like I don't know, over the world, but in this area where I was, the devotees was destroyers of the family lives. It was, and all this and this was during the 10-20 years. And now, after 10-20 years, everyone speaks, but we need family lives. I remember this quite good, all this, because we was kicked out from the temple and because the kids, this is the worst thing in the world. What can be, like that. Therefore, it can be like that during the next 20 years, devotees will go and learn from the Tattvavadis this how to be good manner in the family life, from the yogis, how to. It can be like that, or this will. No, this is my question. Because there is some things that we should learn from someone who knows one the path.
I say that it's not that. You don't have to go to the Tattvavadis, or you can actually learn. Prabhupada's books is filled with instructions also how to live as a civilized person. And it's not that everyone is completely uncivilized, but it is a problem that many join from an uncivilized background, so we practice devotional service very well, enthusiastically, but our, manners are, not on the civilized platform. Our behavior is below the civilized platform, so that ends up dragging us down again. the training ideally should be, we should be trained in practice in pure devotional service, and that should not, that cannot wait. Anyone should be taught pure devotional service immediately, chanting, everyone can add. The thing is actually, our process is not what Prabhupada did not come to first teach us to be civilized, and then he taught us chanting. He first, whatever situation one is in, add Krishna to your life. And then practice devotional service. But there has to be a training. If we're not civilized, there has to be training in how to become a civilized person also. And Prabhupada taught also that. So to some degree, a lot of what Prabhupada was teaching has been lost. I think you can read many details that Prabhupada taught are being lost. I even saw, and I was surprised. I don't travel or something like that, but I saw come initiate devotees taking prasad and afterwards not washing their hands, just going on like that. That's Prabhupada, he was teaching devotees, cleanliness like anything. You have to wash your hands and mouth before you take prasad, you wash your hands and mouth. After you take the hands, you wash your feet. All these, Prabhupada taught many principles of proper civilized behavior. Some things tend to get lost, but Prabhupada taught that. So we can, we can learn from this book, but it's also in Prabhupada's book. I think we get a little, should we stop here? I think I still have a question, but is it, I think should we stop or?
Otherwise people will not be ready for
I think, I'm sorry if I'm so long all the time. I think it's, so. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki.